It's time for the JMRA Football Podcast, a podcast for the fans, by a fan. Yeah! Here's your host, Derek Jones.
Hello. It is time for the JMRA Football Podcast. I am your host, Derek Jones, here with you to chat week one of the NFL. And what a crazy, wild week it was. Let's give you the social media rundown. You can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok by searching Joe Montana's right arm. And I've dusted the fingers off. We're typing things again on the blog, joemontanasrightarm.com. So lots of stuff to get to throughout the course of the week. And I mean, it's been a tremendous time enjoying the football action from Thursday night all the way through Monday night's incredible game with the Jets and the Bills that we'll talk about here in a second. First of all, I do want to say, because this has been a talking point for many people on Sunday, the NFL Sunday ticket. Now, I have YouTube, and everyone has YouTube, duh. So the Sunday ticket this time around is far different on YouTube. The best thing to do is to have the app, because with the app, you can actually watch the quad box. They give you 4 games, not necessarily of your choosing, but of their choosing. They give you those to watch. You can kind of figure out which games you want to watch, and so on and so forth. Now, you can't pick them. I don't know why that is. So they pick them for you. And it's a configuration of 4 games that they decide on, in part due to whatever games you are watching in your area. So in the Philly area, I could only watch San Francisco, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New England, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and the fourth, who was the fourth? Bears, Packers, of course. So those 4 games I could not watch on YouTube with the Sunday ticket. Overall, I thought the viewing experience was pretty good. I haven't had Sunday ticket in a long time, so it was pretty cool. But I just can't get down with not being able to pick the 4 games I want in the box. I know that's kind of not a real problem, but that's something I would like to do that. Let's get into talking some turkey about the games, because that's why we're here, to talk about the week 1 slate. And man, let's go backwards. I don't know what Jets fans have done to the football gods to deserve the torture that was Monday night. Aaron Rodgers, we know by now, has torn his Achilles. He's out for the year. But that emotional scene at the beginning of the game where he runs out with the American flag, all a part of the tribute to those we lost on September 11th, 2001. And the stadium in East Rutherford is full of emotion. And you just have to feel for everybody, because 4 plays in, Rodgers goes back. He gets spun around by Leonard Floyd. And you can see, if you watch closely on the replay, that left foot, that's where the Achilles tear happens. But look and see, up from the left foot, the calf muscle, you can see the calf pop. That is normally an indication of an Achilles tear. How do I know this? Because I have been on Twitter, I've been on X bunches of times, I've been on YouTube bunches of times, and heard doctors in sports say this. You look at the pop of the calf, and you see that in all likelihood, that is an Achilles thing. And I think let's go back here for a second, because we got plenty of time here to talk about Rodgers. But if you remember the hysteria about the Joe Burrow injury, a part of that was the calf muscle. Remember, he strained his calf. The calf sometimes is a prelude to Achilles problems. And we saw it with Kevin Durant during the 2019 NBA Finals. He tore his Achilles after coming back from a calf injury. And that was that. He tore it and was gone for, I think it was over a year. And that's a tough injury to come back from. But to get back to the original point, poor Jets fans. They think now is their time. They think going into Monday Night Football, this is going to be the start of a big run for them, Will it end up in them winning a Super Bowl? Who knows? But now you're part of the conversation in the NFL. Now you're part of the national discourse because you have one of the great quarterbacks of all time on your roster. And just like that, in 4 plays, he's gone. Will he be back? I would have to think so. I don't think he's going to want to go out like this. I think he'll try to come back. And if he does, more power to him. The game's better with him. I know we've had some fun over the years talking about him, but the game is better with him, and I think the Jets are a better football team with him. Now, this clearly puts a spotlight on the Jets defense and Zach Wilson. And what happened last year was basically the Jets had a good defense, they had a good running game with Breece Hall, and then they had substandard quarterback play. If they get average quarterback play from Zach Wilson, they're going to the playoffs. That's how good their defense is. But unfortunately for them, they're now in a situation where they have a hard schedule coming up. They're going to see the Cowboys on Sunday. They've got the Chiefs coming up soon. They've got the Eagles coming up as well. So they've got their hands full over the next month plus with a very tough schedule. We'll see how things turn out for them. I think the one thing that you'd have to at least feel somewhat confident about if you're a Jets fan is this. This team, from the coach down, has catered everything to Aaron Rodgers, okay, including the personnel in the field. And that personnel includes having Dalvin Cook. So you have Dalvin Cook at running back. You have Breece Hall at running back. That's a pretty formidable combo at the running back spot. I think you'd have to be pretty okay with that going in on a week-to-week basis. And, of course, Garrett Wilson was amazing last night in the win for the Jets, picking up a spectacular touchdown, a one-handed grab that really, I mean, you want to talk about raising the building off of its foundation. That was the appetizer to the main course, which was the Xavier Gibson punt return for a touchdown in overtime. But the Wilson catch was just so amazing. And look, the Jets fans as a whole deserve last night from the standpoint of them getting the win. It was such an awful way for the night to start. And you have to feel good for their fans to at least get that out of the experience. And like I said, with Wilson, maybe the amount of weapons they've brought in will help him develop as a quarterback. Having Nathaniel Hackett in there will help him develop as a quarterback. Having, you'd think, Rodgers around still in some capacity will help him develop as a quarterback. I don't think I would go ham trying to bring in a replacement. I'll tell you why. Look at who's out there. Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers. Would you want any of those 3 guys? Do you think any of those 3 guys are literally capable of taking you to an AFC championship game, to a Super Bowl? There's no way. There's no way they're capable of doing that. So I would not even bother to get one of those guys. Now, if you want to trade for Jacoby Brissett, I'd be down for that. If you want to trade for another solid backup quarterback, I think that's pretty reasonable as well. But there are not that many around. Do you think the Colts would give up Gardner Minshew? If the Jets could get their hands on Gardner Minshew, that might be something. But it's highly unlikely that the Colts would give up Gardner Minshew, at least at this point. And if you're the Jets, I mean, you got to get somebody just because you have to fill out the roster. But I think you have to be very, very selective with who you pick up. Because if you pick up the wrong guy, it's going to mess with the locker room. And that's why I think if they go with Wentz, that's a bad idea. I think it's a very bad idea. I'll tell you another guy who's a bad idea. Tom Brady. I would not do that. And I don't think he's going to do that because Tom Brady on Sunday stood up and said, "I'm a Patriot for life," into a hot microphone. Said, "I am a Patriot for life," during his special ceremony. Do you understand how big of a heel turn it would be for him to go from that to then becoming the new quarterback of the New York Jets? If this was maybe a year earlier, I'd say knock yourself out, try to do it. If it was 2020, I'd say knock yourself out, try to do it. But if you're the Jets and you know that offensive line maybe ain't the best, as Aaron Rodgers unfortunately found out last night, I think you take a pass on getting Tom Brady. Now, they're going to call. They allegedly, reportedly have made the call to him, but we'll see if he shows up. I don't think he will. I think he's done with football. He doesn't strike me as a guy who still wants to play. When you hear him talk, when you watch him, he doesn't seem like a guy who still wants to go out there and do the thing. So the ball is in the court of the Jets at this point. We'll see what they come up with. Robert Saleh said today, as we record this on Tuesday, that this was Zach Wilson's team. We'll see if he's full of it or not, and we'll see if he decides to get somebody else. I think they should play it out with Zach Wilson and see what happens. I don't blame them if they go get another quarterback, a veteran quarterback of some name. But I'd be very careful about who you bring in here, because you do not want anybody messing up the locker room, which has already been dealt a big blow with the injury suffered by Aaron Rodgers. Okay, we're going to come back to Jets-Bills in a bit, but I wanted to get through that Rodgers stuff, and we're going to talk about Jets-Bills coming up in a little bit, because we got to talk about Josh Allen. And I mean, one of the more outrageous performances put on by a big-name quarterback on national television in recent memory. I mean, just not good. All right, before we get back to, let's go over 5 key takeaways from week 1. Number 1, Tua and Tyreek. The Dolphins, if they stay healthy, and that is a Grand Canyon size if they stay healthy, they are going to A, be a playoff team, and B, be among the tougher outs in the playoffs. I know it's one game, but consider a couple things here. Before the Cincinnati game last year, and that was a game where Tua suffered the big injury, suffered the first concussion, and that really sent his season spiraling really downhill from that point on. Up until that game, he was averaging 300 yards per game, and he had 8 touchdown passes through the first 3 games. If he is able to do anything remotely close to that again, this team is going to be impossible to deal with. He threw for 466 yards and 3 touchdowns on Sunday in the win, 36-34 over the Chargers. And in that contest, you know, the Chargers were up multiple times in the fourth quarter, couldn't solidify the lead. Tyreek Hill, 11 catches, 215 yards, a couple of touchdown catches as well. You can't stop those guys. Hill and Waddle are almost impossible to defend. So if Tua can stay upright, and I would also love to see Miami actually, find a running game, because they don't run the ball really. If they can do that, they are going to be very, very, very dangerous. And something else to keep in mind, Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Kansas City, the big 3 in the AFC, all lost. All lost in week 1. That is going to be, and I think one of those 3 teams is not going to be able to get up off the mat so easily. The Dolphins have an opportunity to make some noise, I think, in the AFC if Tua stays healthy. Number 2, Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So we're going to do this dance again with the Bengals, I fear, of them messing around at the beginning of the season. They lose 24-3 on Sunday to the Browns on the road. Now look, a lot of these games up and down the East Coast in the Midwest were really pelted by rain. So that's kind of the backdrop for many of these games. The problem here is the Bengals were so bad offensively. Listen to some of these numbers from the Bengals offense. I mean, this is not becoming of a team that, I'll be honest, I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. But you're not going to the Super Bowl if Joe Burrow is going 14 of 31 for 82 yards. Let me repeat, 14 of 31 for 82 yards. Jamar Chase caught 5 balls for 39 yards. You know how many balls T. Higgins caught on Sunday? The same number I had, 0. That is bad. And I know the Browns have had the Bengals number as of late, really since Joe Burrow entered the league. I don't care. The Bengals have got to figure this out. They've got to figure this out because, remember, they have been in the AFC Championship game 2 straight years. They have played 2 AFC Championship games on the road, both times in Kansas City. You cannot keep counting on your ability to win road playoff games, including AFC Championship games. It is so hard to do. It is so hard to win conference championship games on the road. And the Bengals have already put themselves behind the 8 ball in the AFC, at least for a week. I know this is not final. I know what you see in week 1 sometimes is a mirage. But man, not a great start for Joe Burrow, who just signed that 5-year contract worth nearly $300 million. Oof, boy, not great. The 49ers, they were great on Sunday. 30-7 winners over the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was one of the games I watched from pretty much start to just about finish. The 49ers just absolutely outclassed the Steelers. They were all over them. The Steelers look overmatched on offense. Defensively, the 49ers pretty much dictated the game to them. Brock Purdy, 19 of 29, 220 yards, 2 touchdown passes. Christian McCaffrey, 22 for 152 and a touchdown, including a 65-yarder for a score. Brandon Ayuk, 8 catches, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ayuk was targeted 8 times. He caught all 8 targets for a $129 and 2 touchdowns. Best performance of the week, arguably. And we're going to talk about the other performance that may have been the best performance of the week coming up in a second. But just a tremendous performance by the 49ers on the road in a tough spot. They allowed just 239 yards of total offense on the day. And really in a game where they dictated things pretty much from the start. They held the Steelers to 33% in third down conversions. Time of possession was just about 2-1. It was just not good for the Steelers on Sunday. And now the Steelers have to answer some questions. You know, Kenny Pickett got a lot of hype in the offseason, during the preseason, that he was ready. He was set to go. He was set to mature and develop. He was 31 of 46, 232 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. That did not look like a guy that was ready for prime time. So the 49ers jumped to 1-0, and clearly the 49ers are among the class of the NFC, along with the next team that we're going to talk about, the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys absolutely eviscerating the Giants 40-0. The best win for the Cowboys on opening day since defeating the Giants 35-0 in 1995. For those of you that are into trends and statistical coincidences and things like that, the Cowboys won that game in 1995, 35-0 over the Giants. Guess what the Cowboys did that year? That's right, they won the Super Bowl. So the Cowboys in that game were all over the Giants. You have the block kick that was returned for a touchdown. That really set the tone for the whole game. That block kick, that was the end of the game. I mean, when you actually break it down, they couldn't put the proverbial genie back in the bottle at that point if you're the Giants. And it was just an absolute mess. Daniel Jones was terrible for the Giants. In fact, you look at his numbers, Jones, 15 of 28, 104 yards, no touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. And then on top of that, he was sacked 7 times. The Cowboys' defense was spectacular against the Giants. And if you're the Cowboys, you can have whatever opinion you want about the Giants and Daniel Jones, but the Cowboys did what not that many people thought they were going to do. I don't think many people had a 40-0 drubbing on their dance card on Sunday Night Football, but the Cowboys did it. The Cowboys also the class of the NFC. I said it at the beginning of the year. The NFC is a 3-horse race. We're just hoping somebody can join it at this point. San Francisco, Dallas, and our last stop on the 5 takeaways. The last team in the class of the NFC discussion, the defending NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles, they win at 25-20 over the Patriots on Sunday, and really an uninspiring effort by the Eagles. They jumped out in front 16-0, and in part thanks to 2 errors by the Patriots. Mac Jones throws an interception and gets pick-sixed by Darius Slay. And then, next series, they throw to Ezekiel Elliott. He fumbles, and the Eagles get it back, score. And then that's pretty much the lead they held on to. So 16-0. The Patriots cut it to 16-14. And then eventually, because the Eagles totally mismanaged the end of this game. Between the Hurts fumble that put the Patriots in position to score, to the 4th and 2 play from just inside midfield, why are the Eagles going for it there? I didn't understand that at all. Why are you even trying to do that? And if you're going to do that, just put the ball in the hands of your best players. Or actually use your best player, the offensive line. They could have done that too. But they did not. Instead, they opted to go for it in a pass that I believe was intended for Devontae Smith. That was knocked away, and the Patriots had a chance to win the game. Seconds remaining, late in the contest, Mac Jones throws a sideline pass. I believe it was Kenyon Butte, who was a receiver trying to make the catch on 4th and 12. He couldn't do it. He could not keep his foot in bounds. And as a result, the Eagles win the game 25-20. I was not impressed at all with the Eagles' offense. Jalen Hurts was 22 of 33 for 170 yards with a touchdown. He had to hustle in the second half to get that. I was not impressed with him at all. Kenneth Gainwell led the Eagles in rushing, 14 carries, 54 yards. That's notable. Why, you ask? Because the Eagles just did a terrible job running the ball. They have all of these running backs that they brought in. So they have Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott on the roster. They bring in DeAndre Swift via trade from Seattle. They get Rashad Penny from Seattle. And it's Swift who carries the ball 1 time for 3 yards. That's right. DeAndre Swift touched the ball twice on Sunday. Twice. In a game where the Eagles should have been running the ball more than throwing. 33 times passing. Look, I know people love Jalen Hurts, but this is not a team that is going to beat you repeatedly with the passing game. Can they get you in situations? Yes. Can they beat you in one-on-one plays? Absolutely. We're not talking about the 84 Dolphins here. This is still a team where their bread and butter is running the football. And they were not great at anything on Sunday. They were outgained by the Patriots 382 to 251. Mac Jones threw for well over 300 yards, 354 yards, and 3 touchdown passes. By the way, Mac Jones and Tua tied for the NFL lead in touchdown passes so far with 3, although we're only 1 week in. I was impressed with the Patriots. I thought they played far better in the second half, and of course the back end of the first half than they did in that first quarter, which ultimately cost them the game. But, you don't want to say the words moral victory, but for the Patriots, they should have won that game. They should have won that game. They were very close, but the Eagles survived to go 1-0, and that's all that matters if you're the Eagles. You're collecting W's. And again, to go back to the NFC discussion, it's a 3-team race, and we didn't see much on Sunday to make us think that it's going to be any different. Okay, let's take a look at the rest of the games from Week 1. Let's go back to the Bills-Jets. So the Jets win 22-16 in overtime. We talked about a lot of the particulars with the Aaron Rodgers injury. I thought that the biggest disappointment in this game, non-Aaron Rodgers injury division, was in fact Josh Allen. Josh Allen was just an abomination in this game. He was terrible. And, sooner or later, if the Bills are serious about winning the Super Bowl, which they are, he can't play like that. Not even close. Not even close. You can't put the ball in harm's way as much as he does. He was 29 of 41 last night, 236 yards, 1 touchdown pass, 3 interceptions, and also a lost fumble. Just terrible, 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 terrible performance by Josh Allen last night. And now, look, are the Bills cooked? No, it's one game. But that turnover bug has got to stop. It's got to stop. He's got to figure out what to do and not turn the ball over, because that is going to be the Waterloo for the Buffalo Bills if they are not careful. And obviously with the Jets, we talked about it. The Jets have an opportunity to kind of shock the world by basically saving their season with Zach Wilson. We'll see if they can do it. Falcons 24, Panthers 10. Not much of this game. Bijan Robinson had a touchdown. He looks super springy. Very impressed with Bijan Robinson. Tyler Algier had a good game as well on the ground. So the Falcons leaning heavier into that rushing attack, not necessarily putting the ball up a great deal. And as a result, they get the win over the Carolina Panthers. The Ravens win 25-9 over the Texans. Bad news for the Ravens. J.K. Dobbins out with an Achilles injury. He just has not had injury luck. Misses a year again. And that's just such a bad break for J.K. Dobbins. And for an offense that could have used Dobbins' services during the course of the year. And unfortunately for them now, that's not going to happen. So a rough break for the Ravens as they win it 25-9 over the Texans and C.J. Stroud's debut as quarterback of the Houston Texans. The Jaguars, 31-21 winners over the Colts. Pretty good game early on. Anthony Richardson made some nice plays out there. Still didn't take really any risk with the ball, so we'll see how that goes. But Trevor Lawrence and the Jags utilizing key performances from Zay Jones, and also, for the first time in a long time, Calvin Ridley. He had a big game as well as the Jaguars win it by 10, 31-20. The Bucs on the road, 20-17 winners over the Vikings. Mike Evans scoring a touchdown for Tampa Bay. Evans is slated to be on the way out potentially of Tampa. He said he is not signing a contract extension because they did not meet his deadline for a contract extension. So, moving forward, Mike Evans may be trade bait down the line depending on what's going on with the contenders, because why would the Bucs want to let him walk for free? I mean, they would get a compensatory pick, but see if you can get something back for him. I mean, my goodness. Meanwhile, the Vikings had all this luck last year in tight games. Not so much on Sunday as they lose 20-17. Saints beat the Titans 16-15. I don't think we're going to get much of a different Derek Carr than what we saw with the Raiders. We'll see how that goes, but nothing to write home about from either team in that game. A 1-point win for the Saints. The Commanders fiddled around with the Cardinals for 4 quarters until they won it 20-16. Sam Howell was okay. Nothing spectacular. He did his job. He got the Commanders in the end zone, and it's a 4-point win, but it should not have been that close. The Cardinals are wildly undermanned, and the Commanders allowed them to hang around in the game, and at least Washington ended up getting the W 20-16. Packers all over the Bears, 38-20. Give Jordan Love credit. He played well in a big-time environment. That's not an easy game to get dropped into. That's not an easy rivalry to get dropped into between the Bears and the Packers. But Jordan Love, to his credit, stepped right in and made some plays. And also, Aaron Jones had a big touchdown as well in the contest. Love, 15 of 27 on the day, 245 yards and 3 touchdown passes, including 1 to Aaron Jones and also 2 to Romeo Doubs. No Christian Watson for the offense yet, and that's pretty impressive that Love was able to do that despite not having the services of what you'd have to think is his number one wide receiver, Christian Watson. Meanwhile, the Bears are going to stink again. And it's a shame because, the fans deserve better, but the reality is the Bears are not a good football team. And this is a bigger problem than Justin Fields, who was 24-37 for 216 yards, touchdown pass, and an interception. This is bigger than him. He also ran for 59 yards, by the way. They're not built for this as a team. Defensively, they're not good enough. The offensive line isn't good enough. They have not fixed their lines. Their lines are still rough. And until that turns around, they're going to have problems. So I would not be... I was talking to someone earlier. I said, what are the odds that the Bears draft another quarterback in the first round if they're bad again? I mean, that's a real-life consideration at this point. But, man, just a bummer of a way to start the season if you're the Bears. Just no traction on offense by and large. And the Packers just came in and dominated them like they always do in Chicago. They do it again to the Bears to the tune of 38-20. Elsewhere in Sunday action, the Raiders defeating the Broncos 17-16. Russell Wilson still cannot get the W. Instead, it's Jimmy Garoppolo who beats out Russell Wilson and the Broncos in a very interesting game, kind of a tight to the vest back and forth game, but credit Jacoby Myers. He caught 9 passes for 81 yards and 2 scores. Big time effort by him. Garoppolo, 20 of 26, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's what Garoppolo does. He just wins games. Meanwhile, Russell Wilson, 27 of 34 for just 177 yards and 2 touchdown passes. He's got to move the ball downfield. I went to Broncos training camp basically last month, and I have to say, I don't know how much juice he has left in his arm. That was one of the big takeaways I had. I was like, I'm not sure this guy can really chuck it anymore. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see. That was not a great start for the Broncos on Sunday as they fall 17-16 to Jimmy Garoppolo and the Raiders. Rams 30, Seahawks 13. Man, very interesting game here. Puka Nacua basically stepped in and played the role of Cooper Kupp and had over 100 yards receiving for Matthew Stafford, who played very well on Sunday against the Seahawks. The Seahawks and Rams, the Rams have played them pretty tough over the last year plus. So credit Sean McVay and company for how they approach this game for starters and how they played, because they were very strong in this contest. Have to credit Matthew Stafford because he had a great day. 24 of 38, 334 yards. A great performance by him. Kyron Williams actually had 2 touchdowns on the ground, 15 carries, 52 yards for Kyron Williams, who outdid Cam Akers. How about the Cam Akers stat line? 22 carries, 29 yards, 1 touchdown. Just good enough to get the job done there. So a big-time performance by the Rams. We'll see. The Rams' schedule is not that hard. if they were to ever kind of get some momentum going, maybe they can kind of sneak in this NFC discussion with the Eagles and the Cowboys and the 49ers. But speaking of the 49ers, big test for the Rams on Sunday, as they will see the 49ers coming into town. And with that, we have reached the finish line on the JMRA Football Podcast. We, of course, will be back with you coming up later on in the week to go through power rankings and the whole deal. It should be a fun week 2, a stressful, very stressful week 1, but still great nonetheless. And we'll be here with you to chronicle things along the way as we bring you football the best way we can. And that's by hopefully entertaining you, the listening audience. That'll do it. Until next time, I'm Derek Jones saying so long. Happy football, everybody. See ya.